thoughtful ideas and suggestions for guests and topics.
Great events, programs, and documentation.
All the countries and
Welcome to this week's section of Dialogue Houston. I'm your host, Lawrence Payne. To our regular viewing audience, welcome. For those of perhaps joining us for the first time here for HCC's TV Dialogue Houston, we can be found now every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and again at 6 p.m., Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m., and now Saturday morning at 6:30 a.m. on the Cube, channel 57. As always, let me thank you for your calls, emails, and text messages concerning previous shows we've had, but particularly your great ideas for guests and topics and subjects to be covered on upcoming segments of Dialogue Houston. After all, this is your community affairs, public affairs show here on HCC TV now in its 24th season. We have a great show planned for you today. I get to have back one of my friends in the HCC system. He is a great, wonderful servant leader. He has exemplified servant leadership in this community for many, many, many years, 40 years within the HCC system, and 23 years as president of the HCC Northwest College. But having said all of that, he's just a great friend. It's all about relationships that you develop in this city of mutual trust and respect to get things done, to be able to motivate other people, the high expectations, the delegating of responsibility, the knowing that your word is your bond to get things done. He has worked hard to help students achieve upward mobility. He gives tools and training and support to empower his faculty and staff to make the difference that they're making in the lives of the students. He has been a wonderful leader in this community. I've had him on Dialogue Houston in times past, and so great to have him join us again. And he is joined today by Dr. Butch, who is the director of the West Houston Institute. Yes, that wonderful, beautiful, brand new building that you see right off the freeway. And I'm so glad to have Dr. Heron join us, and we're going to talk about all things HCC Northwest. Welcome.
Good, welcome.
So great to see you guys.
So good to be here with you.
Good to have you back.
Thank you for all your work in our community.
Thank you very much, Zach. It's been great fun all these years. We won't say how long, Zach.
No, we won't.
Right in a few years working together and doing stuff together. So when we left off the last time you were on talking about your wonderful college there off the freeway, tell us where we are.
You know, I've been on and I've talked about our Center for Entrepreneurship program and the success we've had in that as far as instilling entrepreneurial thinking for all students and the development of small businesses in our community. I've been on talking about engineering, our partnership with the University of Texas, Tyler Engineering Program, now our A&M partnership, and we're developing very quickly the third component with the University of Houston on the farther west side. So all of a sudden I'm in the engineering business. But you know, the overriding theme of what we've always talked about is access and opportunity.
Yep.
That how do we create access and then opportunity for our citizens throughout our region. But you know, the other part that you've talked about is relevance.
Yep.
And education being relevant to 21st century
and changing
work.
And keeping up, yes sir.
And motivating students and getting students interested and challenged.
Right.
And so all of those factors really are coming together at the West Houston Institute, our new building. Long time in the making. It's really coming. I think it's was really born out of focus on project-based learning, then entrepreneurial innovation, thinking that's different.
Right.
And again, a high-performing faculty. A culture that allows people to be creative.
And that's so important,
And do great things. And as a result of that, we now have our new building. I'm so happy. Butch has been my longtime colleague, was executive dean at our college. And if I get credit for anything, it's creating the culture and then hiring the people that can do the work and then letting them go.
That's good. But tell us about how this whole wonderful, you got a great building, you have a great plan, you have a wonderful understanding of what needs to happen. Tell us what's going on.
Wow, a good thing this is
Okay.
a 2-hour show. So there's so much going on in terms of what we're trying to do with innovation in that facility. It's really HCC Center for Innovation, Creativity, and Entrepreneurship. You know, we're trying to reach all of our students, obviously, but these are skill sets and mindsets that all of our students need to be successful. So we have in the building, we have a 10,000 square foot maker space with legacy type equipment plus the latest high-tech equipment, 3D printing, laser cutting, vinyl cutting, that provide opportunities for our engineering students, provide opportunities for our art students, provide opportunities for our Center for Entrepreneurship. You can take an idea from basically conception to prototype in a short amount of time. So that's just one part of the building. Our collaboratorium within the West Houston Institute has received national attention. It's a very unique facility. We recently hosted an event with Accenture, and they said this is the only facility that we've seen of its type that is specifically created to facilitate design thinking and the design thinking and ideation process. So that's a high compliment. And recently, I want to add this, our building was a finalist in the South by Southwest Learn by Design competition, and we were judged to be one of the 10 best in the world. You know, we didn't win the competition, but honestly, I probably would have voted for the competitor that won, which is they created these wonderful buildings for Syrian refugee children to provide them an education. And it was just a beautiful thing that they did. But we're being recognized more and more for the many things that we're attempting to do in that building, and we're just excited about what the future holds.
Well, you said something that really struck me. By having the different disciplines in the building together, the interdisciplinary kind of crossover of people sharing their ideas and innovation, learning from their cohorts, and maybe tweaking because of something that they said, that's so important in today's environment.
I'm so glad you said that. The basis for our building, at least the theoretical basis, was a book called The Medici Effect by Franz Johansson. And Franz Johansson came down, he was a speaker here. And essentially the Medici Effect is that, you know, the Medicis in Florence brought together artists and thinkers and inventors and painters. And it was from that diversity of disciplines and backgrounds that the Renaissance emerged. So we're trying to create our own little Renaissance by bringing all these disparate groups together and into a common space.
Well, let me push that for a moment, because I think I can see a Renaissance week coming. Anyway, in the urban environment that we're living in and the change in demographics, what the college has always been so great at in supporting, nurturing, undergirding in a crucible of lifting up the students, giving them what they need, not only to register, to take classes, but to strive and survive and stay in school. It seems to me that challenge for the urban, with all the issues that go with that, or even more, we talked about one of those R's that we used to play with in education, rigor, relevance, and relationships.
Yes.
But I think the relationship piece is as much stronger today than it ever has been, because that's what's going to keep me connected. That's what's going to keep me interested. That's what's going to keep me involved. And I think the model that you set up allows that to happen in a natural way, which becomes so important.
Absolutely correct. And I mean, you nailed it. I don't think I can augment that in any way.
I want to do a Renaissance.
But I will say that a sense of place for our students. I mean, we had an architect that came into the building, owns a major architectural firm in town, and he said, "Can I take pictures?" We said, "Of course, it's a public building." And he said, "I would like for you to talk to the," he said, "I'm on the architectural board at MIT. I'd like for you to talk to them because I think they need this kind of a building." And it is a building that you would typically see in those places. And I think what we lose sight of is, you know, we are serving underprivileged, underrepresented populations. And to create a beautiful place, they deserve it just as much, if not more, than those students that are attending MIT. And it can make a larger impact on their lives.
And the earlier they experience that and the earlier they have that in their life, the better they are. What is that thing they say about adults? And adults now, they mean early on as adults. Every adult human being wants three things. They want to feel safe and secure. They want to have a sense of belonging to a family, a tribe, and even a gang. That's what happens with gang. And they want to feel like their life has made a difference and made a contribution. And the earlier you can give them that sense of those three things, they will thrive. You've proven that. You've had students who've excelled and gone on, and you've tracked some of them over the years. They've gone on to do fantastic things.
Absolutely. Let me kind of build on that. You know, as I sit here and talk to you, you know, you and I share so many common interests. you know, the community college and where our campuses are located really are around community capacity building. And I also want to say we don't do that alone. At this campus, we also have an early college high school. I think one of the top innovations in the state of Texas. HCC has either 7, 8, or 9 now. Those students are rock stars. They're coming in, they're serious about their education, but there's a pathway. You know, we have a commitment, and we have a great working relationship with Alief ISD. The building's going to be full of elementary kids, junior high kids.
The younger the better.
You know, getting them involved, getting them engaged in activities and making things and creating things and working together. You know, some people say the equipment is just an excuse to get the people together.
That's true.
And do great things with it and build things. So, you know, the whole idea of being in the community, accessing all of you, and I served on an Aspen Institute committee for the library. You know, all of those components, we need to all work together around that community capacity building.
And that's exactly,
but I'm really happy that Houston Community College is doing that, and we need to do more of it.
we definitely need to do more because I think that's where the rubber meets the road
right.
in getting those people together. David Matthews, the wonderful person who heads up the Kettering Institute, says that we have a problem in democracy, of democracy and in democracy. And you got to separate what are the issues and what are the people. And I think the people issues become more and more clear every day because we have to get to we and us. We're still striving to get to we and us. I'm headed to a break. We're going to come back with our wonderful guest. But I would be remiss if I did not mention the 50th anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King coming up shortly. We just had the passing of Linda Brown of Brown versus the Board of Education. I feel every day when I wake up that it's 1968. I just have to say that. I'm from that generation. I went to school during the first era of segregation. The schools are resegregated again. HISD, 214,000 kids, 7.9% Anglo kids. But that's not a negative. I went to a little poor, all one-race school. I had that undergirding. I had that support. I had everybody in the village helping me. The problem is today we have to recreate that because it doesn't exist in a natural way. So when you say about expanding community and getting community involved, that's what we have to do. We can do it because we're going to have to do it because public urban education as we know it in the city of Houston needs a lot of attention and help. It needs all adults in local parentheses, not just parents, all adults to get involved once again in all children's lives. All children's lives matter. All children's lives matter. Our future workforce. We got a wake-up call. Amazon said, you're not going to make the list of the top 20. You don't have the skilled, qualified, educated workforce that we need. For Houston, the 4th largest city, not to make the list? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I learned how to cook from my grandmother in the mountains of Oaxaca. Every time I need some comfort, I just remember what she told me. HCC definitely was a turning point in my life. What those wonderful teachers and instructors taught me is priceless. I have won many awards and worked in many restaurants. HCC was the window which opened the opportunity for me. For this wonderful city, they have given me so much. I would thank you from the bottom of my heart.
I already knew that I was going to go to college, from a young age. I definitely want to major in political science. After that, I'm going to get my law degree. Then I'm going to come back to Detroit, boost the economy, become the mayor or something, try to make the situation better for other people. I feel like I owe it to the city. I'm determined. It's going to happen. My name is Justin, and I am your dividend.
One of the objectives we had with moving from centers of delivery to centers of excellence was to strengthen our relationships with industry across Houston. The whole idea of the Center of Excellence was to create an ecosystem where our partnerships are so tight that we can quickly develop programs that support industry, create jobs here in Houston, and then grow the economy and keep us as a global leader in many areas.
I'm so frustrated with mother's finances. I wish we had discussed this sooner.
It's difficult making decisions for Mom. With Dad gone, a lot has changed.
Seeing my parents age, I worry about their financial decisions.
As we age, our ability to make good financial choices decreases. Start the conversation today and plan for the future. Financial resources and tools are available at smartaboutmoney.org, a non-commercial organization focused on your financial success.
We have academic programs that help students get from high school into a university. And the data is very clear that students that take the path of a community college finish in far higher numbers than students that start straight into a university experience. Our students can achieve a baccalaureate degree in multiple fields from the universities in the area without ever leaving Houston Community College.
Welcome back. If you've been with us for the first part of the show, you know we're having a great conversation with our guests from HCC, none other than Dr. Hodges and Dr. Heron. And we are going to flip a little bit and talk about, as we left off before the break, what skills we need going forward. But let me give a quick context. In 2036, the city of Houston will celebrate its bicentennial. We'll be 200 years old. The child born today is the bicentennial child who in 18 years will graduate from high school. What kind of future will that child have in Houston, Texas? What is your number one aspirational goal for that child, for our city going forward? And how would you be acting and behaving today if you really wanted to see that happen? So here's a picture you can put in your mind. Let's see, Mayor Turner is the 62nd mayor. So the 64th mayor into the second year of her first term, the Hispanic mayor, will be standing in Discovery Green on August 29th, celebrating Houston's bicentennial. What's that speech like? What is she going to say? Why don't we start helping her write the script now? Or what the speech is going to look like, sound like, that is inclusive of all that we've talked about, of our future workforce, of what I call the children who used to be called minorities in HIC and the surrounding district, the new unempowered majority. Are the new unempowered majority going to be empowered and educated by 2036? I think these two gentlemen have some great ideas about how to make that happen. Zach, tell us, this skill set thing is so important, matching what the industry needs and the skill sets.
Well, and that reminds me of what an important role Houston Community College has in developing that 21st century workforce. And so it's critical that we get students ready for work, ready for university, ready for their next step, but then also give them the skills in which they can be successful.
Yes, yes.
So just getting them there isn't enough. Giving them a 21st century toolkit that creates nimbleness and critical thinking skills and the ability to communicate and read and write effectively and work in teams and get along with people. And all of that is critical to the skill set that we need in the 21st century. I'll let Dr. Heron talk about how we're approaching mindsets and skill sets.
Well, so as I said previously, the Institute is really centered around the notion of creativity, around innovation, and preparing students for the vital skills that they need for success in a 21st century academic and workplace environment. So it is a big toolkit. We're finding that more and more students are returning to HCC, even with degrees, because they lack some employable skill sets that employers are asking. So we should be prepping all of our students for success in that arena. So one of the things, and we have to start early. So our first cohort of our Ideas Academy, which stands for Innovation, Design, Entrepreneurship in the Arts and Sciences, IDEAS. The first cohort is already in operation, and we're pleased with that. They came from the early college high school right on our campus. They're thrilled. In fact, there were many, many more applicants that we could take for the first initial cohort. And they are learning those mindsets and skill sets. And they received a design challenge from the mayor's office around food security, which is a prevalent problem. Yes, and they took it in many different directions, from food deserts to nutritional deficiencies to they're even growing their own plants hydroponically to think in terms of what the future should look for. And so, in doing that, it's not about growing the plant, it's about them working in teams and understanding the need, and more importantly, envisioning a different future and what that looks like. So we have a tremendous obligation to our communities, all of our communities, to make certain that we're preparing them for success in that environment.
In a recent article in the Wall Street Journal, they were talking about the number of jobs that are not going to be existing in the next 20 years. All the new jobs is going to be created, and all the new career paths, whole new career paths, and things that we can't even imagine that haven't even happened yet. And so if you're stuck with a skill set that's obsolete, and you haven't gone back, or you haven't availed yourself of additional classes or courses or certificate programs, you're going to really be in trouble.
Absolutely. And I saw a statistic where, like 40 years ago, you mentioned 1968, in Detroit, 1.2 million people were working, and it represented a certain amount of the U.S. economy. I don't know if it was 5% or 10%, it doesn't matter. Silicon Valley, that represents that same amount of the 5% of the economy, is doing that with 47,000 employees.
Wow. Okay.
So I think that's a good example of 1.2 million, 50 years ago, 47,000. So people are going to have to be able to contribute in a new way. You know, I'm interested, we talked about the food security issue. You know, this new generation is very, very interested in social entrepreneurship, making a difference, giving back. You know, the values that I was brought up with and so forth, as far as, you know, work hard, make money. You know, people want to give back. There's more of a focus on that.
Yeah, and earlier in life.
Yeah, and so I think to take advantage of that it makes me optimistic.
But there's a creativity and innovation, right? When it comes to food, there's this, why did we always think of a grocery store, a big box grocery store? We can grow. We got all these vacant lots across the city.
Absolutely.
The city actually owns a lot of them.
That's
we can grow food.
Absolutely.
If we were in a rural setting, that's what we do. We'd feed people. We'd grow food and we'd feed people, right? Because fresh vegetables are the thing we can't get in most of those neighborhoods. Grow your own.
New thinking, new ideas, you know, new style of social activism around community capacity building.
And social entrepreneurs who are doing good and still making money has proven that you can do good and still make money.
That's true.
There's a return on your investment if you capitalize it properly, if you put your business plan together correctly, you can do both.
That's exactly right.
You know that 2 of our students in the design lab, they created this food computer from open source architecture from MIT, and basically what it does is, if you told me you like Spanish grown tomatoes, they can take a seedling or a seed, put it into this box-like thing that they made. I mean, they created this.
Right.
And whereas hydroponics uses typically 80% less water than regular gardening, this uses 80% less water than hydroponics.
Whoa.
And there are sensors that are attached to that tomato, and so essentially we can control the lighting, the humidity, we can control the nutrients, all of those things in that environment. And the plant actually tweets you out and says, I need water, I need nutrients. So that's the kind of thinking we need to be doing, and that's what our students need to be exposed to prep them for success. And one thing that I forgot to mention, it's an omission on my part, is that we also have to prepare our faculty to teach differently, because this is a different generation of students. And so the Faculty Fellows Program that Dr. Kurt Ewan is leading, bringing in faculty fellows into the Institute, good thing in terms of the reinvention of teaching and learning and the reimagination of higher education.
And we have great examples of what HCC has done, not only in your campus but others, but also around the country of how this works. We don't have to invent anything or reinvent. There are great examples all around that we can just implement and say, listen, this is how it works. Don't be afraid of new technology. Don't be fearful. Here's what happens when you really embrace it. It makes your life easier and your job easier, actually.
Absolutely. Well, and I think where we're going with this is that each student will document their learning in a learning portfolio. And it may be digital, but if, you know, instead of a regular resume or something, you know, here, like the artist has a portfolio. Well, so students will show us what they've done, what they've created, what they've written, you know, what they've spoken. You know, their poetry, their robots, you know, whatever it is, and then present that in a different way than ever before, to make that connection with the employer or with their next level, and then also to, you can take a final exam and score 75 or 100, and then what does that mean?
Yeah, right.
But if you make something,
right, exactly,
and you show me
apply
what
it to
you
something?
made,
Yep.
then that's going to have meaning.
Yeah, and I guess we're getting to the point of individual growth plans for students, right?
Why not?
Why not? As you said, why not?
Well, that goes back to why don't we think differently?
Yeah,
You know, why don't we do things differently
Yep.
than we've ever done before? This generation and the realities of our economics demand it.
I think it's an individual connection is so important, though. An individual personal
Absolutely,
instruction,
right.
personal relationship, and the undergirding of that and nurturing. Where do you see, put your crystal ball on the next minute we have left, both gentlemen. What's the next horizon? What's the next big thing? Where do we go in the next?
Well, I mean, I'll tackle that. I walk in that beautiful building and I see all the interaction and I see the students coming in. I'm not sure where we're going, but I know it's our responsibility to capture that, to channel that energy into productivity. My formula is workforce development equals economic development equals community development.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Good jobs,
There are links.
make money, invest in your community, return the investment.
There we go.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, that's beautifully stated. I think we really need to constantly iterate what we're doing. If we're static, we're going to be swept into the dustbin of history, if you will. So.
And that will not let happen. Dr. Herron, thank you. Zach, always good to see you. Dr. Hodges. We're going to have to get out of here. Time goes too quickly. So let me just give these closing comments. First of all, I apologize for my coughing. I have a terrible something, and I don't know what it is, but it is what it is. Let me end with this. April is going to be declared Diversity Month in Houston, Texas by Mayor Turner on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday. There are a plethora of events planned throughout the month of April. I mean, every day, some days 3, 4, 5, 6 events. Go to the City of Houston's website, punch in April Diversity Month, and all that stuff will come up. Let me also say that the last week of April for the last 5 years has been Compassion Week. So we're wrapping Compassion Week into Diversity Month, and you'll see a whole list of those things for Compassion Week. And as always, on April 28th, which I'll talk about more later, is the Servant Leadership Conference that we do every year as the last event for Compassion Week, so we'll be talking more about that. But it's a great idea to do it. Mayor Turner is excited about showcasing diversity with a big D in Houston, and people don't realize how diverse we really are. It's really more than you think. So go and avail, and I'll see you at some of the events, hopefully. Until next week, until next time, we have to go. As always, until then, peace, power, and love.